So there's a lot going on in the world these days. I haven't done a vlog on my own for quite a while, and I know I said I was going to get back to the daily vlog, and some of you might wonder why. Why do I even put energy towards this? And the reason is because I'm trying to be a good example for my daughter because I would like her to follow in my footsteps, and I would love for her to be ambitious enough to do a daily vlog throughout her life because she's a very important person, not only to me, but she is extremely brilliant and extremely smart, and she is worldly, even though she's a teenager. She's very intuitive, very sensitive, and a very, very gifted young lady. And I just feel like she should share herself with the world, even if it's a vlog, daily. So I started when she was here, and she even said that I work really hard, and I just want to be a good example and show her that you can work hard and still have fun. And I have been doing daily vlogs with Lorraine Springsteen. They've been fun, just little chit chat daily affirmation vlogs. So do Google Robin Zodiac and Lorraine Springsteen. That's Lorre hyphen. And you can see some really funny clips there. So there's a lot going on in the world that is happening right underneath our nose. Because the media, which is funded by the Congressional Budget Act, which was instated by Nixon, and one of the reasons he was impeached was because he pledged our Social Security Trust to fund the government with the media support. So therefore, the Department of Justice and the FBI can run operations or false flags and get paid through the Congressional Budget Act, which benefits maritime law, which was is said to be the Queen of England, but it's actually for the last 70 years, well, longer than that. The Netherlands has been behind these schemes. You have to remember that film came into existence, in the early 1900s, and so they created conspiracies, and Americans were left vulnerable because of having the greatest constitution in the world, but not instating titles or entitlements. So, meaning that the Rothschilds, who are just grave diggers, that is what their family bloodline did hundreds of years ago when they established the central banks that we know of today and the Federal Reserve. Federal Reserve is different than the World Bank. So just to set the record straight, that they didn't do business or intermingle until Bill Clinton, once again, he was in the media for a sex scandal, but behind the scenes, he was undoing the Glass-Steagall Act, which was allowing commercial banks and to intermingle, commercial and private banks to intermingle. So there's been a how do you make money? If you don't have a competitor. Plus, I pursued a lawsuit many, many years ago against the credit card companies for the Sherman antitrust laws. And you have to remember that we, as human beings, when we're born, we are born with a trust. And so we were supposed to have gotten it at birth. Our parents are supposed to be the caretakers until the age of 18. But FDR introduced the New Deal, and he was handing out AAA Social Security trust payments to farmers. But the DuPonts, who is related to the Kennedys, also um, through marriage, and they don't have any children together, but that's another horrible Kennedy cursed tale. Is the ones that brought us GMO foods and also, they've been running under the Rockefellers, which is very similar to the Rothschilds in regards to our strawman or our CUSA bond or our Social Security trust only being debt, meaning that the only value that we have on this land being born in America is to either die or go to jail or go work for the military. But the military is false because, once again, it's being funded by fractional lending, and basically they're allowing their Social Security trust to fund their own service. And when they go to countries, it's a whole financial hitman kind of events that take place. I mean, yes, Americans, we're very generous with our lives, and we send troops out and keep them vulnerable, but we are the most valuable, even though when we're born, we're not worth anything. So that's changing, moral of the story. So that's changing because of lawsuits and because of the system having loopholes in it, and someone that was able to figure out the banking system, or what it's called really is currency, to understand the flow of currency, but also timing is not the only thing, it's everything. So being one with nature and living in the moment and figuring out things as they go, and having an angel and a devil on your shoulder, or fear or faith on your shoulder, which one are you going to gravitate to? Well, we've been ingrained and brainwashed that fear is familiar to us. So a lot of times we self-sabotage and we don't know what's good for us. So another thing that happened in the news that I'm very, very happy about is that the Department of Justice and the FBI are agencies. They're not a chain of or a branch of government. And so there was, I think, 12 Republicans that signed a document and served James Comey on The View, which is beautiful work on regards to Catch 22 with the Congressional Budget Act, because once again, it's set up not only to fund the government and Congress, but to also fund the media, and they're supposed to be working hand in hand. But the media loves to sensationalize, loves to keep suspects as guilty people right off the bat, set the stage, listen to the cops. The police, and I'm not talking sheriffs, I'm not talking the U.S. Marshals, even though they're not doing their jobs right now. The police are basically henchmen, and they're totally unconstitutional, which means they're unlawful. It's not illegal to have police, it's unlawful, especially in the country of California. And the reason I say country is that California did break away 2 years ago, but it takes 10 years to be its own country. But as of this morning, and this is why I'm leading up to all this government talk, is that there was Black Hawks flying over Santa Monica this morning, which means that the military is here. And if the military is in land, or then that makes it a country. That's what makes it valid, is having a military. Then you're a country. So today is a wonderful mark in history because California got its Black Hawks. We do have a problem. The problem is called Governor Jerry Brown. He is retiring, but he has set up a lot of traps along the way, like President Obama did on his way out with immigration, as we all know, and also with the royal family and maritime law. That's going to be going away. But England did Brexit, and now that they're getting an American princess who happens to be also half African American, as Obama was, then it's going to change to common law, which means that Americans are taking back their freedoms. And yes, we do need a military. We need a military to stand up against all of those foreigners that are collecting on our identities. okay? We need to understand that all the homeless, and guarantee you that the majority of the homeless, if not all, and I say this without sounding dramatic, are probably Americans, okay, sitting on the streets of Los Angeles and sleeping on the streets and trying to survive day to day just to have a meal. So, and their Social Security trust is going to farmers not to farm so that the DuPont family can bring in chemicals. And, once again, the more destruction towards Americans, the more money foreigners make. But see, we're going to turn that around. So when the foreigners come here, they get a visa, or if they leave the state of California or come to the state of California, they have to show their passport, which is your receipt of birth, so that we can transact and take a tally of how much air you breathe in a country. So we're also using the Mormon Church with the DNA. They have the biggest database, and Paul Ryan is stepping down from the GOP, and California is going to be very generous in offering up their Republican McCarthy politician to assist, but it seems like they chose a GOP caucus. I'm not sure if that's just a step in, or if he's running for GOP, or if he was nominated. I did see something like that. I didn't hear what they were talking about, but I did see a television set, I don't remember where it says GOP's caucus. So I don't know what state he's from, and it doesn't matter. It was a generous offer to utilize Republican McCarthy, but if not, it's no big deal. It's better for California just to stick to its own, work our own machinery of how to make money and how to pick up and move forward with our neighbors, Mexico. This is why I call California Calico, the Republic of Calico, meaning that we're Republican, we protect the land, we protect families, we protect money or wealth, which is the same thing as land and family. So we're going with the living. We're going to keep the Constitution, but entitlements doesn't necessarily mean that they have to be public figures, or that that has to be public information. That's one thing that President Obama did stay loyal to, was the fact that there are identities that are not to be exposed and to stay classified. Just like the Romanovs and Russia, that's what they do. They operate behind the scenes, but they definitely are a monarchy. Have you ever noticed Putin one term becomes prime minister, another one he's president, then he's prime minister, and now he's president? I think he's been president a couple times or whatever. Every country desires to have a constitution as Americans, but Americans are left vulnerable because every country has a queen or a king or royalty or nobility, because that's how they determine relative value, which determines the value of currency. And so with the whole Social Security antitrust and the mortgage, right now there's lawsuits. There's definitely a lawsuit going on with Deutsche Bank, which is Luxembourg, who is ruled by a homosexual male twin who refused to accept a monarchy, which is the queen. So Deutsche Bank is definitely getting hammered, and they're not going to be able to figure out the math, because they are in bed with Germany, and Germany is in bed with Wall Street, which is the Netherlands, on basically using us Americans as stock and waging our lives either in war or on arrest, set up by the Department of Justice or the FBI, or it's definitely not the CIA. The CIA are financial hitmen. They take down economies. They don't take out people. They would rather hit them where it hurts, which is basically pulling the plug on their money. And so that happened 2 years ago. And so now California is independent of the United States, even though it takes 10 years to actually become official. Cal exit already happened. Okay. So 2 years ago on April 16th. So, and once again, Obama put that into play. And once again, he went to England and, that whole thing with Prince George and the robe and the wife and Prince Harry and the bomb that they talked about, everything like that was was a reward. And the thing is that the British family has been in existence right after World War II, and they had a lot to do with the computer, the first computer that was actually created by the Germans, and then the UK cracked the code, and the UK wants to take credit, but they were actually working together because Queen Elizabeth II is actually a German Jew. And so they had to take out the nobility or the royalty, which was Alfred Krupp, and they used film and they used storylines and they used directors and producers and all that stuff to create history as if we know it to be real when actually it was reality TV. It was basically set up to brainwash us, to give sympathy to the perpetrators, which is the Zionists. So the Zionists are definitely not going to get their reformation payments because of the tax laws. So President Trump, he's playing both sides, which every president has to play both sides if they want to keep their head. I mean, Kennedy didn't play both sides, and what happened, he lost his head, and his bastard son was raised in the CIA with MK Ultra. And if you read about MK Ultra, mind control, it's pretty devastating that this has happened to anybody. So, payback. Everything comes out in 50 years, and we have to remember that RFK was running for president and that he was the attorney general, which was the lawyer, and he was still the attorney general when his brother got assassinated, and his sister-in-law was queen. And it's funny that the IRS, online website went down because they said that the tax laws were still from the JFK era because JFK's blood was dead money that the Democrats is what I call them, decided to basically rob a Republican. And Joseph Kennedy, who was John F. Kennedy's father, was a Republican, but went to work for FDR, so he switched parties because he was afraid that if he didn't, there would have been a civil war here in America again over the fact that the government has been duping us and not giving us our Social Security trust at birth, or when we give birth, they call it welfare reform. It's not, it's Social Security. So Trump is going to have to turn that around. So, and he's going to make good on it because he's boxing the corner. So don't worry about Trump. Trump's not your enemy. Actually, being a Democrat is your worst enemy. So being Republican and knowing that your bloodline has a value on it and that you're entitled to be here in this country and that this land and where you're born gives this currency value, that's where you should draw your empowerment from and make something of yourself and stop with letting all these foreigners come in and make these great lives on the backs of Americans, and mostly our homeless Americans. So that's my big soapbox today. I just wanted to say a few things, and I ended up having a big speech here. But I'm very proud of my American soldiers. Very, very proud of the CIA. I'm so glad that it's headed up by a woman. I'm very, very happy that Mike Pompeo, who was the director of the CIA, is the Secretary of Defense. I'm so glad because that definitely gives us leverage with Russia. And Russia is our daddy right now, so we have to be nice to our daddy. So it's not as bad as the media makes it out to be. I mean, they love drama, they love sensationalisms, they love to promote media whores that all she did was help the banks by going on. She says that she was afraid to lose her house and her car. Well, when you parade yourself around with your ego to take down, people that are trying to do good for not only you, but every other American, you're a traitor. Okay, and for all those women out there that are talking about, oh, well, 20 years ago I was really pretty and he tried to get on me and blah, blah, blah. Well, first of all, you can't even remember 20 years ago what size he was. Nevertheless, if you were pretty or not, then why does that have to do with anything? I mean, these women make us, other women that are really changing the world's perception of women by working behind the scenes and not trying not to be full of ego. That's where we have to draw our attention to. And these women are just making fools of women that are really moving and shaking and making things a better way of life for all of us, especially us Americans. So, more to come. God bless America.